This next question was sent on Twitter using a hashtag CornyDriveThru from Christopher Stingray. I recently heard...
If that is indeed his real name, go ahead.
I recently heard WWE Hall of Famer Bully Ray compare Orange Cassidy's supposed rise in popularity to Daniel Bryan's. I really need to know that this may be the stupidest comparison of pro wrestlers I've ever heard. This is a weirdly worded question, but what are your thoughts?
Well, it sounds like a weirdly worded statement by Bubba Ray.
Well, in a sense, here's where I think Buddy Ray is coming from here. In that Daniel Bryan was not chosen by WWE. The fans got behind him and forced their hand. While that's a little bit different from everything I've read, Tony Khan and people in AEW didn't expect Orange Cassidy to connect with their audience, the AEW audience, as well as he did. And because of that, they've pushed him into the main events.
Well,
so
besides, wait a minute. Hold on here. Bryan Danielson, besides the fact when he got over in the WWE, at that point, there were 3 times as many people watching it, at least twice as there are now. He got over with a large amount of people because he was a great wrestler and also a likable human being. People liked the person. They saw, whether you know his story or whether you just saw the story that the WWE presented, regardless of which, this is a guy who for years and years worked and sacrificed, going all around the world to become one of the best in-ring performers in the business, who is also a smart and perceptive and intelligent guy who understood wrestling and the psychology of it as well as the performance of it, and who was a guy who could make other people have the best match they'd ever had because they were in the ring with him. And people, not only the backlash of having Roman Reigns pushed down their throat and the fans being mad at Vince, but also seeing this guy who was so obviously great, who was such a talent, but who didn't fit the mold of the top star in the WWE. That's why they decided to hijack the thing. But Bryan had all those qualifications and those qualities. This fucking jackoff, Pockets, looks like shit, doesn't ever speak, is not a real human being. It can't be taken as a real human being. You might laugh at him. He's Red Skelton. There's a dated reference. He's some goofy comic that you might laugh at, but you don't care whether he gets run over by a bus once he gets out of the arena or not. He's not a real person. He's not even when he tries to wrestle, he's the average indie outlaw talent trying to wrestle. He does the same shit. He can do a lot of that shit because he only weighs 170 pounds, fishy white and pale with no distinct physical look. So he's not a master of in-ring professional wrestling. He's not a master of psychology. He's not a human being that connects emotionally with a large number of fans. He's not a great promo or a person who can carry stuff off. Like Daniel Bryan was not a great promo in the classic Terry Funk mold, but he could speak and make you believe he was real and he meant what he said. Pockets has none of that. So maybe I get where Bubba Ray was trying to go, especially if the kid owes him some money and he wants him to continue working so he can pay him off. Maybe that's why he was complimenting him. I don't know why Bubba would compliment this piece of shit and any other reason for him to do so. But no, it's ridiculous. There's absolutely nothing that you can compare between Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, and our little dog Pockets, except they both have currently 2 legs and 2 arms and 1 head. That's the similarities.
All right. Our next question, I think.
Does that make sense? Did I say anything that's just revolutionary or just highly off the beam there?
I understand what you're saying, but again, what I was thinking Bubba Ray or Buddy Ray was talking about, like I said, was just based on the interviews that these guys are doing. Like Tony Khan, who eventually ended up dressing like Pockets for Halloween, just to show that he can connect with the staff. He said that he didn't get Orange Cassidy. They kind of had a place figured out for him. And due to the reaction he's received from their fans, they pushed him heavier than they originally were intending to. In that sense, it's similar to Daniel Bryan. Only
actually,
in that
it's
sense.
not. Actually, it's not, because you always knew that the goofs that like that kind of shit, for the people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people are going to like. It's all a bunch of guys with goofy gimmicks taken from indies where they were used to working with, for the people in the rec center. But so, yeah, they were going to cheer that shit from the start. But where Orange Pockets got over was apparently he's full of shit in real life, because he was able to sit down and talk to Tony Khan. You saw Tony Khan put out the statement, well, I didn't realize he was that intelligent and he has a lot to say and blah, blah, blah. He basically schmoozed Tony Khan and got over, and now as a result, the worst pushed wrestler, most embarrassing talent in the industry is currently the guy that sticks his hands in his pockets that the billionaire's son that running the company dressed up as on Halloween. Imagine that. There's no similarity. It was a business decision finally in the WWE, forced by the obvious, and Vince even couldn't deny it. Whereas this was brought about because the fucking boss wants to dress up like this clown for Halloween. It's all low rent. It's always low rent. They can't help themselves. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Still love you, Bubba, but no, it's fucking
Really?
good.
You love him?
Well, you know what I mean.
No, I don't.
I don't think we've ever been in love, but I don't have any problem with him right now.
All right, not exactly Mr. Nice Guy.
No, we've had a few go-rounds. He was very mad at me the night that I yelled at him in, where was it, St. Louis, I think, on the TNA pay-per-view, because he screamed fuck about 3 times on camera. And Jeff was beside himself and not happy about it, and I'd been the agent of the match, and so I fucking go back after the match was over with Bubba. Of course, it was the electrified cage match they had with LAX, which was a complete fucking abortion, which they try to do because they'd done it in Mexico. The people in Mexico are more forgiving, and the people in TNA were more incompetent, and it didn't work, so Bubba was pissed. So we yelled at each other for a while, but in the end, he was pissed and saying fuck because we put him in a stipulation gimmick match that landed like a fart in church. But and then there was the time he power bombed Jillian Hall on an OVW show in a dark match off the top rope through a fucking table without telling me he was going to do it. I'd give him the finish. I said, just send the people home happy. They were down here for a couple weeks working with some of the the developmental guys. And so I think it was Eminem, whoever it was. Whatever. I said, put my guys over because you're willing to. Thank you very much. And then make a comeback and send the people home happy. They power bombed Jillian Hall off the top rope through a table in the middle of the ring in a dark match in the Davis Arena at my TV taping. I had to change my booking for 2 weeks, pull her off all the fucking shows, leave her off the goddamn television the next week. And I was screaming when they come back, and what the fuck are you doing? They were completely gobsmacked that I was upset because they were used to, this was 2003 maybe. They were used to working for Heyman. And then, the WWF, he'd power bombed Mae Young. They didn't have any idea why I was upset. I'm screaming because this is not fucking sports entertainment. This is the last wrestling territory left in the world. You, a 275-pound man, have just powerbombed this 120-pound blonde girl off the top rope through a fucking table. A, I can't break another table again for a couple of fucking months, or elsewise then it just becomes garbage wrestling like everybody else does. B, she cannot be seen walking around upright for the next 2 weeks, or the whole thing's fake and phony. So I had to take her off fucking cards and unbook her off TV the next week so she could sell what had happened to her. They couldn't get it, and I couldn't get why they couldn't get it.
Remember, he also took a cheap shot at John Arezzi when John was invited to a TNA pay-per-view by Dixie Carter, and she didn't know who he was. She didn't know John Alexander was John Arezzi from the music industry. She wouldn't have known who John Arezzi was anyway.
I saw John at that pay-per-view, I think.
Well, he ran into Bully Ray or Buddy Ray, whatever his name was, backstage, and he started cutting a promo on him. He disrespected him years ago and never used him, and John has no idea what this goof is talking about. So then during the match, he tells someone, I forget who, to throw him over the rail. He lands on top of John and starts choking him for real.
Oh, God.
What an unprofessional loser that guy is.
And the problem is, honestly, a lot of the guys that worked for Paul either didn't get a fucking good education in what wrestling should be before they didn't know they didn't know that ECW was working for its audience, but it wasn't. You couldn't or shouldn't do that anywhere else outside of ECW because it didn't make any sense and it was no good. So the people that most benefited from ECW are the ones that had an education in the wrestling business first and then went to ECW. And then they could tell the difference in what you should do there and what you should do anywhere else. The people that were not served well by ECW were the people that got an education in what wrestling was supposed to be in ECW. Because then it was a very hard transition to go anywhere else.